So welcome everyone again to the NASEO Rural Energy Working Group. We're so happy to have you back or welcome you here for the first time today. For those who might be unfamiliar with the Rural Energy Working Group, this is NASEO's regularly convened working group for state energy offices to kind of hear from expert speakers or their fellow energy offices on best practices to advance energy affordability, resilience, reliability, economic development goals for their rural constituents. The scope is fairly broad, and we maintain kind of a backlog of all of our past webinars and topics on our website. So I'll be happy to drop the link to our Rural Energy Working Group website in a short while in the chat so folks can kind of get familiar with some of our past offerings if you're joining us for the first time today. We're very excited to feature today a bunch of panelists who can speak to kind of the investment side of energy development for rural communities with kind of on the ground engagement with rural communities. And so prior to that, just want to also put a few plugs requesting information on some topics that NASEO is scoping for future resources. We're developing a program in a box to compile examples of state programs and policies to support agrivoltaics. So please feel free to reach out to myself with my email listed here if you have a program example that you'd like highlighted. You may have also gotten an email from us recently to solicit examples of how state and territory energy offices are engaging with their federally recognized or individually recognized tribal nations on energy-related policies, programs, and plans. And if you have any examples to share, we encourage you to reach out as well. And all these slides will be shared after the webinar, so no worries about capturing all this information in real time. Also wanted to highlight just a few quick funding opportunities and partner events with relevant and timely deadlines. The first is a notice of funding opportunity from the Department of Energy, Office of Clean Energy Programs for their FY25 Energy Improvements in Rural and Remote Areas program. Concept papers are due on February 27th for this opportunity and are required to submit a full application. We also came across a new opportunity from the Department of Energy Geothermal Technologies Office to support regional partnerships for geothermal data. Part of the eligible entities to apply include state energy offices, others include landowners and other local agencies that would be interested in implementing geothermal solutions as an electrified heating and cooling solution or a generation source. More information can be found on the various hyperlinks here that, again, folks will have access to once these slides are shared. And then we also wanted to flag a partner webinar coming up on best practices and planning for large-scale solar, especially as solar implementation kind of comes at the requirement of engaging local communities on land use. And so we have the registration link for that event here. And we wanted to then turn it over to Brooks Rumenick, one of our co-chairs for the Rural Energy Working Group, also the executive director for the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And we'll kind of toss it over to her to introduce our panelists and provide a few remarks at the top. So I'll stop sharing. Brooks, over to you.
Thank you, Jasmine. So welcome all to today's webinar. As Jasmine mentioned, my name is Brooks Rumenick, and I'll be your moderator this afternoon, or I guess for like Tom, it might still be morning. Apologies for the West Coast folks. I get so confused by that time change difference thing. But a little bit about myself. I proudly serve as co-chair alongside Tom Elliott from Oregon for NASEO's Rural Energy Working Group. I'm also the director for the State Energy Office in Florida, which is housed within the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Our office is Florida's legislatively designated State Energy Policy and Program Development Office. And among other things, we evaluate energy-related studies, analysis, policy and program recommendations to the governor and the legislature, and focus on moving Florida toward a more diverse, stable, and reliable energy portfolio. In addition, we use available state and federal funds to develop and manage energy efficiency, renewable energy, and energy education programs throughout the state. And a keen area of focus in this realm is on our rural and oftentimes fiscally constrained counties, as well as the communities within those. And in most recent years, we have supported these areas through several energy efficiency upgrade funding opportunities for local governments, as well as enhancements to water and wastewater treatment plants, installing energy efficient equipment, and implementing conservation strategies to reduce energy use and reduce greenhouse gases. These efforts have had a positive impact on the rural communities, both by improving energy efficiency and also providing economic opportunities for the local workforce. And I'd like to welcome our two primary panelists today that will be highlighting ways to build capacity in rural communities and better equip those communities to access funding for clean energy deployment and increased energy reliability. So I'm pleased to introduce Chris Keynes, Director of Community at Climate United, and Luis Bernal Jimenez, Deputy General Counsel at the Appalachian Regional Commission. Welcome to both of you, and we'll begin with our presentation by Chris Keynes.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having us here today. I'm going to share my screen here. I have a few slides I want to walk through. I'm going to apologize in advance for probably sharing both too much at the same time, not enough information about this opportunity and about Climate United here today. Can everybody see my screen okay? Get a couple thumbs up maybe? Good? Yeah. Awesome. So today I want to give a little bit of an overview of who we are as an organization at Climate United. I want to talk about the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund a bit. I want to talk about qualified projects and then end on a concrete opportunity that we have in the market right now. As Brooks mentioned, my name is Chris Keynes. I serve as Director of Community at Climate United. I'm based in Los Angeles. It's been a bit of a nutty week, so I appreciate you bearing with me as we work through this deck here today. All the slides will be available, and always happy to talk through my contact information at the end too for anything you want to go deeper on. Obligatory disclaimer slide here. This is a new program, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and Climate United is a new organization that continues to evolve as our understanding of the challenges and opportunities that come up with implementing the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. The information in the presentation today is super current and super accurate as of today. And as the program continues to evolve, there might be shifts or pivots as necessary. So just wanted to share that. I want to talk a little bit about who we are as an organization. We're a coalition of 3 different organizations. Calvert Impact Capital, who is an impact investing firm that's been around for many years, Community Preservation Corporation, multifamily affordable housing entity, and Self-Help Credit, which is a family of CDFIs and credit unions, located centered mostly in the Southeast US, but also with offices across the country. And so these 3 organizations came together, created Climate United, and applied to the EPA for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So what is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund? The GGRF is a generational investment in reducing greenhouse gases, as well as creating important community co-benefits across 3 different programs. The one I'm going to spend the most amount of time talking about today is the National Clean Investment Fund, And I will again apologize if this is either too basic or too detailed. It probably is to some extent both here, but just kind of a little bit of level setting here. The National Clean Investment Fund is the program that Climate United applied to and received funding from. And so that's what we're going to spend the most of our time talking about today. But also just wanted to kind of, for context here, share the other two programs that are part of the GGRF, the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator and the Solar for All program. I think especially for folks who are working statewide, the Solar for All might be a program that you're more familiar with or have touch points to. The biggest difference between these programs and what sets NCIF apart from the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator and from Solar for All is that we are standing up green lending institutions. So whereas all three of these programs involve grants coming down from the EPA to intermediaries, the Clean Community Investment Accelerator and the Solar for All are re-granting those resources, whereas the NCIF is actually lending out the majority of our capital. To make things extra confusing, I'm going to contradict myself by the end of this presentation, but that's the easiest way to think about it a little bit here. NCIF, we're standing up lending institutions, and the majority of our resources are available to folks and to projects and to communities through loans. National Clean Investment Fund has some program characteristics, and then Climate United specifically has some targets. The NCIF, as I mentioned, the majority of funds go into projects as financial assistance, which is anything but grants. At least 40% of investments must be made in what the EPA calls LIDAC. It's an acronym for low-income disadvantaged communities. Climate United has slightly different goals where we are going above and beyond. And part of why I'm really excited to talk to this group today is that we have a specific carve-out in our portfolio where we are targeting 20% of our portfolio to invest in rural communities, in addition to 60% into LIDAC communities and 10% to tribal communities. 3 different recipients from the NCIF, so in addition to Climate United, the Coalition for Green Capital and Power Forward's community also received NCIF awards. All dollars must be used to support or finance qualified projects, which we'll explain a little bit later as well. 2 main ways that we invest and support projects and communities. The first is direct into qualified projects. Again, we'll get into what those details are in a minute here, but we can make direct investments into qualified projects. Typically, these are very large projects. And then the other way that we are supporting, in particular, smaller projects is lending through community lenders. So providing liquidity to CDFIs or other community lenders, having them identify projects in their communities on an agreed upon strike zone, and financing that way as well. When I say very large for those direct financing, direct investment, we are looking to write ticket sizes starting at $25 million. And we have private capital mobilization requirements where we're trying to match about 3 or 4 to 1. So a great project for us to do a direct investment in would be a $150 million solar project where folks are looking for $25 or $30 million to round out a capital stack, for example. I want to talk a little bit about qualified projects. Qualified projects is a technical term that comes down from the EPA. There's a few different components to qualified projects. Say that first 3 of these are relatively straightforward. As you would imagine, a program in the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, the project needs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, also needs to reduce or avoid emissions of other air pollutants, and needs to deliver additional benefits to American communities. So much of our work is beyond just supporting the environmental outcomes of these investments. It's thinking about the important community co-benefits around green workforce, around lower energy costs, around American manufacturing. All those count as kind of those additional benefits to American communities. The last 3, I think, are need a little bit more explanation. We're looking to finance projects that would not have otherwise been financed. If folks are able to access capital through traditional networks, we encourage them to do so. We're really looking to support projects that do not have other avenues for financing. We also have the private capital mobilization requirement. As I mentioned before, when I was giving the example around the direct investments into large projects, for both direct investments and facilitated investments, we are looking to mobilize about $3 to $4 per every dollar that we're spending through this program. So we're looking to mobilize private capital, get private capital investors comfortable with green lending, and hopefully grow the overall market. And then lastly here, this is a program that's supporting only commercial technologies. So that really cool startups that's doing that super innovative thing that's never been commercially deployed before isn't a good fit for this program. What we're trying to do is use technologies and approaches that are working in market rate contexts, that are working in wealthy or affluent communities, and make those technologies and those opportunities and those cost savings available to people from historically underrepresented and underinvested communities. So that's the kind of qualified project criteria. Every project that we're supporting or intermediaries project that is being supported through GGRF money needs to meet those requirements. And then we have our priority categories here, and this really gets to some of our strategy and our approach. There's so many different places and so many different directions you can go with a program like this. We have decided to start with these three. So distributed energy generation and storage, specifically in a solar context, but you can imagine wind or hydro, larger projects also fitting into this category. Net zero net zero emissions buildings, so building decarbonization, both on new construction as well as retrofits. We're very interested in, especially with some of our partners in our coalition that have a lot of experience with housing. And then lastly, zero emissions transportation. So that's everything from single family, low income, low wealth, low FICO EV loans, all the way up to fleet electrification, thinking about municipal buses, school buses. We have a really exciting RFP that we just closed to procure what we believe to be the largest purchase order of electric drayage trucks, so the trucks around port communities that help with the last mile delivery. The communities around ports suffer from some of the worst air in America, and so we're looking to support market transformation around electrifying the drayage trucks there as a little bit of a foreign. Mentioned some of these other co-benefits that are super important to us. These are the kind of 4 core outcomes that we're driving towards. The healthier planet and population, most certainly, but also thinking about that American-built green economy. We have a lot of requirements in our projects to have Built America, Buy America requirements, Davis-Bacon and related acts around paying fair wages and prevailing wages in communities. So we're really thinking about the economic impact of our work as well as the expanded economic opportunity that comes, quite frankly, from reducing energy costs or smoothing energy costs, which are oftentimes a volatile expense for small businesses and families across the country. And then lastly, kind of circling back to the idea of mobilizing private capital, thinking about what inclusive and transformed capital markets look like. We've received $7 billion from the EPA, which is a really meaningful amount of money. And yet it's like a drop in the bucket relative to what we need for the green transition. When we start thinking about that private capital mobilization match, we start getting to a number that's, 4 or 5 times larger than that, which is very exciting. But kind of the ultimate upshot of all of this is closing the gap between perceived risk and actual risk, and having private capital and private markets see the opportunities that exist in these communities and put their money in absent any subsidy from the federal government ultimately. So we're thinking about how we can prioritize projects and demonstrate in a way that accelerates that as quickly as possible. I wanted to give a little bit of a deal example for that would be potentially relevant to this audience. One of our first investments was with a solar developer called Scenic Hill Solar. They're based in Arkansas, a market that is very challenging to finance solar in. And so Climate United made a $31.8 million pre-construction loan to enable the development of some solar power plants across the state of Arkansas. This developer has a contract with the University of Arkansas, as the University of Arkansas looks to reduce its energy costs over time to incorporate solar components to their energy solutions. It was a really quirky deal that had like a lot of different time pressures and had some market inefficiencies, and Scenic Hill was having a really hard time funding some specific components as it relates to this deal. And it was just tailor-made for Climate United's goals. We're looking to support, as I mentioned before, communities that are LIDAC and rural, but then also think about those important co-benefits. The University of Arkansas has educational workforce development initiatives around renewable energy jobs and careers. And so we just saw this as a really great kind of signature early investment that talks to the impact that we're hoping to have as an organization going forward. We have a little bit more about this on our website too, and some interviews with different stakeholders as well. I want to close here by talking a little bit about a pre-development grant program. I mentioned before that I was going to contradict myself by the end of this presentation, and this is that part. We are a lending organization institution. The thrust of our work is to lend into communities and to projects, but we recognize that not every community is equally capital ready, and that there are pre-development needs that sometimes need to take place before projects are ready to be financed. And so towards the end of last year, we launched something we're calling the Next Pre-Development Grant Program. Applications are currently open for our first round. Award sizes go up to $300,000 per project. Our thinking is that each round will focus on different communities of focus to us. So this first round is singularly focused on our Native communities. I know in a lot of rural communities, there's meaningful overlap between tribal and Native communities. So just wanted to take this opportunity for a shameless plug and to do a little PR for the program here. If you have Native communities in your service areas, would love to get this opportunity in front of them. It's a relatively streamlined application. We're trying to drum up as many applicants as possible for this program. For future rounds, imagine there'll be other focuses, in particular on those portfolio carve-outs around LIDAC and rural that could be interesting to this group as well. These pre-development grants can go toward feasibility studies, environmental impact studies, hiring consultants for project planning, community engagement, really anything that needs to happen around in that genre of pre-development activity that does not involve construction, that is coming pre-groundbreaking and is helping make projects more financeable. Our ultimate goal to use the pre-development grant program to build out our pipeline for our lending portfolio as well. So we're looking for projects that are ultimately going to need financing either directly from Climate United or one of our intermediaries as we stand up our intermediary program. This is exclusively for nonprofit organizations or state or local governments or Indian tribes. There's a lot of like gray area, quasi, public-private partnership situations. Happy to address any edge cases on a as needed basis. And we're looking for projects that are in the early stages as well. I'll close on just like a little bit of like an info slide here. Would love to connect. We have some time Q&A at the end here. Happy to take any questions now, or if you must have any follow-up questions, this is my personal email account. And then we also have a wonderful team that is growing by the day. And if you send a note to that general inbox, you might get a little faster response. That's our website. And we also have an intake form as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present, and I will turn it back over to Brooks.
Thank you, Chris. So I know we've got some dedicated time for Q&A at the end, but there was a quick question that came in the chat that if you could, hopefully it won't take too much time, address, that would be great. And the question is any information about future focus areas for the pre-development grant?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in the process of finalizing what those future rounds are going to look like, and we expect to make a public announcement in the next couple of weeks here. We're probably going to announce both the second and the third round. We imagine having 2 more rounds this calendar year. And the teaser I will say is that at least one of those rounds will probably be very relevant to this group.
The teasers. Thank you, Chris. So we'll follow back up with you at the end for some additional questions. But in the meantime, I want to allow ample time for Luis. So we'll pass the mic over and the screen over to Luis Bernal Jimenez. And Luis, I will let you kind of take it and go.
Thank you so much. And hi, everyone. Great pleasure. And thank you for the opportunity to share with you all the opportunities that are available through the Appalachian Regional Commission. I would like to share some slides so that you can all get a quick reference of what we will like to offer. And so I would like to introduce the topic by describing who and what is ARC. So ARC is a state and federal partnership that was created back in 1965. We provide services exclusively to 423 counties in the 13 states that you see here in this diagram that are in white. So from New York down to Mississippi, that's a footprint in which ARC operates. So what I'm about to share with you all, it's only available to counties in this footprint. So I want to make sure that to have the correct expectations, this is limited to the communities and the counties in those areas of our country. So so the basic purpose or mission of ARC is to bring those counties to socioeconomic parity with the rest of the nation, and we have 5 investment priorities: building our businesses, creating or building workforce ecosystems, as well as building the infrastructure in the region, and providing for regional and cultural components that could provide for economic development, as well as building community leaders and capacity within those communities. And I wanted to share this because all our projects, all our grant applications are approached from the lenses of one of these or multiple of these investment priorities. So when looking at opportunities within ARC, and I'm going to go into details about where the money is or potential money is, the idea is that communities, non-for-profits can approach us and build their case based on these components. So in terms of eligible entities in ARC, we have local development districts, Indian tribes, state, counties, cities, political subdivisions, institution of higher education, for example, and public and private non-for-profits. So basically, in a nutshell, if it's a for-profit or an individual, those are the only instances in which we cannot provide funding by way of grants through ARC. One of the key things in terms of how much funding we can provide to our communities is based on the specific county designation. And this is important because that is going to determine how much money can ARC put into a project and what is going to be the match requirement for that specific county. So each year we issue updated data and designations for all of those counties. So we have basically a five-tier structure that, depending on where those counties are in terms of their needs, is the amount of money that ARC can provide. So if it's a distressed county, we can go up to 80%. If it's an at-risk county, we can go up to 70%, where we will be expecting 30% from either the applicant or somebody else that is a partner to that applicant. So we're fairly flexible in considering things of value that can be used for matching purposes. Transitional counties can receive up to 50% and 50% contribution from other sources. Competitive counties, 30%, and 70% will be coming from the entity. And those who have attained socioeconomic parity with the rest of the nation, they are not eligible, even though they are within the footprint of our statutory authority. One of my goals is to provide with this slide deck a quick reference for you all. So if you are interested, once we conclude the webinar, you are all going to have access to this slide deck. Feel free to navigate through that so that you can see who are the point persons, the point of contact in your particular state. As I mentioned, we serve 13 states, and here we have provided the state project managers. So each one of them know ARC. We work with them very closely on a regular basis. Many of them could be your colleagues at the state government level. And we always encourage you all to reach out to them, consult with them, because they are the experts of the specific economic development strategy and how the state would like to use the funds that are available to them. So highly encourage you all to connect with our state program managers if you have further questions about my presentation or what it's available or how you can partner with them in particular projects. So now I move into what are the specific options by which projects can be funded through ARC. The first one is the Area Development Program, and that's where that one comes straight from the states to ARC. The other three programs, the Arise, Power, and the Energy Hub, are programs that are centralized in the DC office. Nonetheless, we always require the consent of the states in any particular project, in any particular application. So Arise is a program that is multi-state. That's the main feature of that program. So if the project would impact 2 or more states, it is a potential candidate to apply to the Arise funding source. Just by way of a note, this Arise program has funding for the next 2 years. So make sure that if you are considering this and you're exploring the possibilities, prioritize whether or not Arise is a good fit, because the window in which we are going to have the money available here is it's already limited to up to 2026. In terms of the Power, it's an initiative to help coal-impacted communities to transition into other opportunities, business opportunities. And you will see some examples of applicants who have been using these tools to provide for programs or specific projects, either in rural communities or entities that provide power to rural communities. And the last one that you all see here is the Regional Energy Hub Initiative. This is a fairly new program. It was launched last year. This is fundamentally to explore the economic and to do research and support activities for a natural gas liquids hub in the region. So it's fairly broad, the areas in which we can participate there, but the fundamental thing is tied to those capabilities or opportunities for that, meaning natural gas and natural gas liquids related activities in the region. So in general, these are some of the examples about potential activities that can be carried out. As I mentioned, infrastructure, whether it is electric or natural gas, utility scale storage, renewable and alternative energy technologies, microgrids, and smart grid technologies, workforce training, programs in green technologies are some examples of ways by which ARC funding can be used. Electric vehicle charging stations, we have some examples along those lines, and also supporting activities that could help the distribution systems to get ready for an electrified fleet in their footprint. Activities related to hydrogen from steam methane reforming are also activities that can be considered under ARC's funding opportunities. This one in particular, the Energy Hub that I mentioned. Research, planning, and other key analysis that are needed to implement a project are also things that can be considered for funding under us. And research related to ethane energy storage hub in the region is also a potential area in which we can participate. I wanted to give some examples of successful applicants that have been participating and that illustrate the potential and options available through ARC. This first example is one in the ARISE program. And in this one, Beneficial Electrification League will use 4.5 million. By the way, in the ARISE program, the maximum amount of money available under that one is 10 million. So ARISE is up to 10 million. In this one, which is a multi-state effort, and you can see here how many states are impacted by this effort. The Beneficial Electrification League will be collaborating with 32 electric co-ops and municipal electric utilities to expand the multi-state technical assistance network and accelerate the adoption of advanced electric utility grid technologies and infrastructure. And in terms of how this was all put together, you will see here that the Beneficial Electrification League brought to the table 3.5 million in matching contribution. And as I said, we are very flexible in terms of what it's been considered to qualify to be considered for matching purposes, as long as it is consistent with the principles in the uniform guidance. The next example that I would like to share is under the POWER program. And this one in particular is a grant for 1.5 million to Appalachian Voices. And what they are pursuing with this funding is to establish and implement a solar finance fund in the region. This specific initiative aims at not only providing funding, but also to provide technical assistance and to launch 64 solar installations. Keep in mind that, as I mentioned before, the core principle that has to be in mind when applying for ARC funding is that economic development component. As you can see from these two examples, one is very different in nature from the other one. One is focused on the electric utilities. The other one is more targeting distributed energy resources as a mechanism to achieve the same goal or a similar goal. We have another one that is large scale. This one is in the Blue Ridge Mountain Electric Co-op, and they're using ARC funding for utility scale, non-lithium, domestically sourced batteries. And the goal here is to create basically the battery belt in North Carolina. So this is another example of how we can help and support initiatives that will help not only rural communities, but all of those who are located in our footprint. One thing that I want to highlight with this one is that this is an example in which you can actually use and leverage the direct pay funding available for government entities and not-for-profits, because in this specific example, they are using to be considered as, for match purposes, the money that is expected from the direct pay investment tax credit. So I wanted to include this as an example of how we can be creative in facilitating projects that integrate other sources of funding, whether coming from the federal government or different kinds of sources to create the capital stack necessary to achieve the project goals. This is a set of hyperlinks for you all to have a quick reference. We have small videos where we explain how to leverage ARC funding and other sources, which is, as an example, the Energy Infrastructure Projects and Direct Pay Credits playlist. You can find that. We're also going to have a Getting the Grant workshops. Those are scheduled for January 30th in West Virginia, February 4th in Georgia, and February 6th in New York. You are also invited to take a look at those options, and where to register is available to all of you in the hyperlink at the end of this slide. With that, I know it's a lot of information. I just wanted to provide a overview of what ARC is, what it's available to you all, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Luis. I'm so encouraged. I know that the opportunities that you presented are in a very limited locale with the 13 states, I believe you mentioned. It's not necessarily broad, far-reaching the entire nation, but ideally, as there's success that is gleaned from those opportunities, others will take interest, and that can grow and expand elsewhere. So that's exciting. I have a number of questions, but I want to defer first, if we could, to the audience. And therefore, if there are any questions by any of our audience members, then you can either enter those in the chat. Jasmine, is there an opportunity for them to, I don't know how many are on the call, and if folks can just raise their hand, or how you'd prefer for this to be organized.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks can feel free to come off mute. I'll actually pause the recording here. So in case that